Hey ho, let's go. Hope everyone is well and welcome to Pugsley's Pit on this first day of February. As usual, I am Sean Pugsley Martin. This is episode 84 of Pugsley's Pit. And as we always do, we begin the show by asking yourself the question, where else would you rather be than right here? Booyah! Right now. You can follow the show on Twitter at Pugsley's Pit or at Sean_Martin77 or at MD Nelly. And remember, as my 7-year-old sons always say, smash that like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe icon on the YouTube broadcast for future episodes. We're back.
Yeah, subscribe and like. I mean, come on. We're not doing this for fun. We're trying to,
No, it's fun.
Yeah, so far.
Anytime I can agitate John Fisher, it's fun. His lapdog pool boy, Dave Cavill. But so we're back. However, the Ravens are not, nor are the Detroit Lions. We're going to save Super Bowl 58. It's actually a nice picture back there. I loathe those two guys on the left, but
sure you do.
We'll save that for the extravagance. I don't want them celebrating in our home locker room next week. So Super Bowl extravaganza next week. But until then, the games were good, but head scratchers.
Yeah.
Head scratchers.
They were head scratchers.
Here, okay.
Let's start with the AFC. Start with game one.
Go with game one. It's the first time in my life I've rooted for the Ravens, and it's the last. I mean, okay, you hear about this genius Jim Harbaugh thing. They're one of the best, if not the best, running team in the league this year. And their running backs combined for 6 carries.
Yeah.
It's not all Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson played horribly, but I almost can't blame him. It's a one-score game, and Lamar Jackson throws the ball 37 times. That's unforgivable. You got to
credit Spags.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they wanted. They were not going to die. They were not going to get beat by allowing them to run up and down the field. You know what I found the most interesting is that all week, everybody talked about what's the key to beating the Chiefs? What's the key to beating the Chiefs? And that's to control the clock and keep that maniac off the field.
Yeah.
Time of possession favored Kansas City by a lot.
The Ravens didn't even try.
They flipped the script on them.
They didn't even try. You can't tell me 6 carries by your backs.
No.
Is 3 from Zay Flowers. You can't tell me 6 carries is even trying.
They had a play on 4th and 1, and Lamar got 9 yards on 4th and 1. Not 3 like Josh Allen might get. 9. And he was a half a cut away from 19 yards.
Yep.
I don't know. You can't blame him for the strip sack, I guess. I mean, you can't. That's happens to the best of them. You can blame him for the interception.
That interception was the worst pass I've seen thrown in an NFL game since Neil O'Donnell laid it up in 95 to Larry Brown.
Yeah.
In the Super Bowl both times. I mean, that was just my criticism of Lamar has been you can only go to those 8-yard passes to the tight end over the middle so much. At some point, you got to make throws. The touchdown of Flowers was a nice play, only set up by his athleticism, and he just launched it.
Yeah, okay? Unbelievable.
He threw in a triple coverage there. Any one of those 3 guys could have caught that ball.
Yep.
Any one of them. And that's why Lamar, he's
too locked. He was too locked in. He's too locked in on the tight end in those situations.
I said it last week. He's the best athlete to ever play the position.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Oh, my God.
But being a great athlete does not make you a great quarterback.
I'm more perplexed. So 2 things that stood out to me. I think the Ravens were overwhelmed by the moment. They played out of their heads. Terrible penalties. The celebration penalty on Zay Flowers is terrible.
Would that explain being over their heads? Explain the mind-numbingly stupid personal foul penalties that they could just continue to get all day?
Exactly. I mean, how about at the very end of the game, Was there like a minute 37 left? They get a stop. They have 2 timeouts. They get a stop. They get a chance to get the ball back. It's a 1-score game. And they go 12 men on the field. And then I don't know what Roquan Smith was thinking, other than he thought he was being cast for longest yard 3. I mean, what the heck is, like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
So then the flip side, your favorite team in football, and this also goes into the Lions or to the Ravens, and now the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. You have a defense that by some metrics is a historically good defense, and it's really, really good at every single level. And you know that Mahomes only has 2 receivers that he really trusts.
Yep.
Kelsey, Raheem Rice. You know it. You know it. You know exactly what you got to take. You have to take that away, and you've got to roll the dice and say that, Valdez-Scantling and the rest of that cast of inconsistent receivers actually catch the ball and don't drop it as they're uniquely prone to do. And Mahomes was 19 for 20 targeting those 2 guys.
Yeah.
19 for 20. So I will, my little Super Bowl hype is this, because I'm never right. I'm never right. Chiefs 49ers was my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl. And it was the Chiefs were my preseason pick because until you kill this guy, he's so much better than everybody else. Whenever it matters, he's just so much better. He does things that ordinary quarterbacks cannot do. He thinks of things that all quarterbacks don't think of doing, and he wins football games.
He does. You gotta play.
Oh, wait, let's see when he goes on the road. Check. Let's see what happens when he's going to go on the road twice. Check. Let's see what happens when he's got to play in bad weather. Check.
He doesn't care.
Keep bringing it on and doubting me. And it's not even. He's got an unbelievably uniquely inane ability to harness his incredible competitive nature into a calm play. He doesn't get overwhelmed by anything. And that's amazing. It's just amazing to me. This 6-year run is really something that I'm not sure we've seen before.
I would use the term nauseating.
For you, it is.
Me. Here's the thing with the Chiefs. If you think they're going to come in and be phased by playing a road game, you're wrong. They're not. They've been around. Again, this sickens me, but you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be very, very good, but you cannot give them stuff.
You can't give them stuff.
You cannot give them personal foul penalties.
No, you can't give them short field. You can't give them anything.
No, you can't.
And Reed and Spagnuolo are masterful at getting off their playbook and making adjustments. They're as good as anybody. And I thought the Ravens were too, especially after what they did to Houston in the second half. But man, you know who could use a coach like Andy Reid? The Eagles. Oh, wait a minute. They already had him once.
Yes, they did.
Big Red, man. Big Red's a great coach. And so now you wonder, right? Because now Matt Nagy's there and the offense is a little bit different. And Bieniemy was a super genius, and it's no knock on him or Nagy, but it's clearly Andy Reid's offense. Clearly.
Where is Andy Reid ranking? You're going to have to start talking about him in the all-time list of coaches.
Yeah, he's top 5. He's got to be top 5 at this point, right? So he's the winningest coach in 2 franchises. How many trips does he have to the NFC or AFC Championship game? He's closing in on 10.
Yeah.
He's been in 4 Super Bowls. He's won 2.
Yep.
Now 5. He's about to win. We'll talk about our picks next week, but it's hard to pick against those guys, man. It's really, really hard.
It is. All right, let's go out west. Now, I had a conversation with our buddy, the mayor of Gansevoort, New York, earlier in the week, and we actually had a disagreement. I said, look, I love Dan Campbell. I hope Antonio Pierce is Dan Campbell 2.0, where a guy can come in with attitude, make a team embodied around him, his image. He's got to work on the game stuff, okay? being risky on 4th down in mid-October when you're playing the Titans is one thing. But and I get you got to dance with who brung you the biggest dance. I get that. You got a young team outside of your quarterback who's been to a Super Bowl. You got a really young group. You got to manage the situation. And you could tell it coming at the end of the first half. They're up 21-7. They get the pick. They go down there, about the 2-yard line. And he is just trying to get every angle to see where that ball is because he was dying to go for a touchdown.
He should have.
No,
you
get your points.
But that's where he should have gone. In my opinion, that's where he should have gone because 28-7 is I mean, now you're like starting to wrench the dagger in a little bit.
Yeah, but 24-7, which he got, you still got a 3-score lead. Here's the problem. You remember when Mahomes lost? He lost, but the Chiefs lost to the Bengals in the AFC title game a couple years ago.
Yeah,
they had a spot where they went for it on the last play of the half. They didn't get it, and the Bengals rode that momentum. It changed the game. They came out in the second half and they won it. Don't give the 49ers a chance to get that momentum. To get the field goal, they're up 24-7. He goes for it on 4th and 3. The pass to Reynolds could have been caught, should have been caught, whatever.
Yeah.
If you can't trust your kicker to make a 45-yard field goal, then shame on you for having him as your kicker.
Right.
And the reason why I say that was a bad call was this. If you had said to Dan Campbell and the Lions at halftime, okay, you're going to come out, you're each going to get the ball, third quarter is going to be halfway over with by the time you're each done, and you're still going to have a 17-point lead, you're signing up for that all day. The Niners got their field goal to start the half. The Lions came down. They drove the field. They got down there. Kick your field goal. It's not 4th and inches and you're doing a tush-push or whatever they call it.
It's not 4th and inches.
Take your field goal. Get that 17-point lead there because guess what? Now the momentum is – but by going for it and missing, you give the Niners a chance to flip the script. And then you get the interception off the guy's face mask, and here we go.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little luck involved. I mean, hey, Brock Purdy played a really good football game.
He did.
And they never quit. I thought the Gibbs fumble was really that's really where it started to really flip and Gibbs was killing them. Yes, they had no answer for that speed on the edge at all. He was killing them.
In a span of minutes, that game it wasn't over, but it was over. You could tell Detroit was rattled.
Yeah. Once it started to come unhinged. Look at Dan Campbell is who Dan Campbell is. I respect that he stuck to what got him there. I respect that. We're going to second guess it all day, and if every single one of those went the other way, we'd be like, man, he's a genius. He's got so much faith and conviction in what he wants to do. He trusts his guys. They always respond. We'd be having a whole different conversation about it.
We would, but we're not. So
we're not, right? So now, I mean, and he said it. He said it to his guys, and he said it to the media. Like, it's hard to get here, and I don't know if we're ever going to be back. So we got to come in just as hungry. The thing that stood out the most of that entire game for me with him was leaving the locker room with his arm around Teddy Bridgewater.
Yep.
We'd already announced that he was retiring at the end of the season. It just shows you that he's a dude, man. He's a guy. Like, he gets the league. He understands and that's why they respond so favorably. That he understands a player's psyche. He understands how to get the most out of guys. He understands that these chances don't come around all the time.
Yep.
He embodies that city. They lost. And they lost to a better team. I mean, the Niners are a better team, but they had them.
And where I feel bad, again, I like Dan Campbell. There's actually people out there in the national media saying he deserves to lose his job for the way he coached that game. Come on.
Really?
Come on. He's the main reason they're there.
What a world of overreaction. We live in a world of overreaction like I've never seen before in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He literally, with what he's done for that franchise and that city, he'd have to go. he'd have to win less than 5 games for 3 years in a row before he gets fired.
Yeah.
I mean,
You would think, unless he was a Carolina coach, but we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So next week's Super Bowl, the one thing, and this is where I disagree with Campbell. I go back to Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta and the Frisco Chiefs Super Bowl 4 years ago. He coached his team out of 2 Super Bowl championships, but I'll expand on that next week.
Yeah, but on the flip side, in the last 2 weeks, he's coached his team into 2 wins. And when they were first 2 times they've been down by that level of margin, never won football games. They were 0-34.
Yeah. No,
Like
maybe
0-34. That's a lot, man.
Maybe he's better at being behind. I don't know. But I'm going to be rooting hard for the 49ers. There's a lot of Raider fans that are sick over this matchup. The rivalry in the Bay with the Niners and the Raider fans wasn't really prevalent for me when I lived there because the Raiders, when I moved, the Raiders were defending Super Bowl champs and the 49ers were in the Scott Bull era before Steve DeBerg ever showed up.
Yeah.
They were almost irrelevant. So I didn't get that. But there's Raider fans saying the Chiefs 49ers is about the worst matchup possible. And that's what we get. So we shall see.
Look, should be a really good game. I hate this week.
Yeah, it sucks.
I hate this week. I think this week is a waste. I mean, I get it from the only thing it's good for is for getting everybody healthy. So you've got the most, you can maximize the number of people that can actually play. Yeah. I'm not sure Kadarius Toney's going to see the field next week. That ship has probably sailed given his crazy rant. I mean, he's so valuable to the Chiefs. He's done such a great job for them since he's gotten them. It might be the greatest trade in New York football Giants history, trading him. As much as they were criticized for trading him, it might show itself that was the smartest trade they ever made.
Yeah, right.
Was getting that dude off their roster because, man, it's the kind of stuff I actually expect to see from like the Jets. You expect to see that kind of crap from teams that are losing, right? Or the Cowboys recently.
They're the first 2 on my list in the next segment. Good job.
I know. I do. It's called foreshadowing.
An unscripted segue. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about some anticipated hot off-season topics. Again, before the Super Bowl, we'll get plenty of time for that next week. I'll start in your backyard. If I'm a Jet fan, I'm just aching for the season to get here because anytime this guy's not playing, to get kicked off the Pat McAfee show, you got to be a special kind of stupid. And A-Rod did. Maybe it's the name A-Rod. Because the other A-Rod that is in the sports world is questionable ilk himself. Where are you as a Jet fan? The season's like it didn't even exist, rightfully so for you, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I'm just trying to erase everything up to everything until the 4th play of the regular season. I'm okay with. Everything after that, I don't want to hear about anymore. Followed up by a lovely article by Diana Rossini on The Athletic talking about the insane dysfunction in the organization and Aaron Rodgers' culpability in it.
Yep.
So, I mean, they've made some changes on the staff. The assistant GM's gone. There'll be some player changes. They've got some decisions to make. But at the end of the day, like they need to show up in July and they need to just go play football. They don't need any more. We don't need 100 interviews a day with Aaron Rodgers. We don't need him. We don't need to be on Hard Knocks. We don't need, any blowhard bull crap from our coach. We don't need any of that. This is it. Like they come in next year and they don't make the playoffs, the whole thing gets blown up. And I'm right back where I've been 40 times in the last 50 years with an entire new regime, a new quarterback, a new coach, a new general manager, an entirely new coaching staff, the whole thing. And as has happened many times, with 3 or 4 all-pro level players languishing, just waiting to get to free agency that you can get the hell out of there.
Yep.
And it's I feel like this cycle was destined to be broken coming into this year. That's what makes it so disappointing. But frankly, I don't want to hear anything Aaron Rodgers has to say anymore.
No.
I want to see Aaron Rodgers play football and back up all this love affair that he supposedly has with New York with his play. And is he like this is his legacy at this point? Like, he put himself out there. He did it.
He
I
did.
mean, the Jets put him in a position by making the move to get him, but it didn't cost him a ton. But everything he's done, he's put himself out there to be the face of the franchise, and he's done nothing. He's done nothing to warrant that to this point. And the injury is what it is. He was hurt. It's incredibly unfortunate. But just shut up. I mean, shut up. I don't care what your vax position is. I don't care if you're microdosing mushrooms. But I don't need you getting into it with Jimmy Kimmel. I don't need it.
Yeah,
I don't need it. You know, you want to be Joe Namath and be seen coming out of nightclubs at 3:00 in the morning? Have fun, pal. I don't care about that. But stop bringing attention to a team that doesn't need any more negative attention. We've had enough. We've had 13 years since we've been to the playoffs. We have the longest drought in North American sports.
It's hard to think. It's hard to think it's accidental. He's not saying something out of turn, because here's a guy. He was so good in Hard Knocks. He knows what he's doing. He knows.
He's crazy smart, Sean. He's very, very intelligent. He's very intelligent.
You couldn't have played Hard Knocks better than he did. No. It was a clinic on PR. And, so he obviously, you say he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Just stay out of the controversy. You don't need it. You don't need it. All right.
My real concern when they got him was, like, you're not in Green Bay anymore, where like 18 reporters show up and 7 of them are national media. Like, you're not there anymore. Like, you're in the best and worst media city in the United States. When you're great, but they can't wait to find a way to tear you down. And they hang on everything. And there's hundreds of them. He handled it perfectly. He couldn't have handled it better. He handled it perfectly. But then idle time is the devil's fodder. And he had time to sit around and be interviewed and talk. And he made the comeback about him. So that took attention away from the team. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show people. And great. Like, I'm glad you got that competitive fire, and you still want to prove the doubters wrong. That's great. I mean, that's what the best of the best do.
Yep.
But just be quiet. Like, him not being on the McAfee show is probably the best thing for the Jets organization in the last 5 years.
It probably is. All right, let's go. I'll lead off with this one. This Dak Prescott, right? I think Dak Prescott he's a great advocate for mental health, right? He's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's got 2 big issues, though, that there's nothing he could do about. The Cowboy fans and their owner seem to anoint any quarterback that takes over this franchise. They did it with Romo when he became their starter. That they are just automatically the greatest quarterback in the history of football as soon as they become the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment, and I think that it's too much for people to live up with, because let's face it, I think at his best, Dak Prescott is a very, very good top 10, top 12 quarterback in the NFL. That is best.
This year he's higher than that, but I would agree with that.
But he's 2-5 in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been a disaster. And I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's a good guy. But the other problem in Dallas is everything is bigger with Jerry Jones. Everything is an event with Jerry Jones. It's a sideshow.
That's the problem, bud, to me.
It's a sideshow. So
that's the problem. So, hey, but look who's in a better position than him?
Nobody's got $59.5 million on the cap.
And a full no trade.
Yeah, for coming up. So
and they're cap strapped. And they've got CeeDee Lamb to deal with and Micah Parsons to deal with. Like, they've got cornerstone guys that they need to deal with. So they are in no other position than to give him the $300 million contract. He'll be the highest paid player in the NFL.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to say anything. He's got him. He has the entirety of the cards because he can play it out, and he can't be franchised. That's also in his contract.
Wow.
So that's amazing, right? To leverage yourself into that position where you're $59.5 million against the cap on an expiring contract. You can't be franchised, and you've got a full no trade, and you're on a team with a bunch of really, really good players. And you hold all the cards, all of them, every single one of them. Because if he plays it out, they're not going to be as good this year because they're not going to be able to sign the pieces that they need unless they're incredibly astute at finding 3 like all-pro caliber linebackers to fill in the middle of that defense. Pollard's a free agent. They don't have an answer on their roster to replace him. He holds all the cards. All right, trade me. The Falcons will absorb $59.5 million, and they'll sign him in a minute.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know. I think Jerry Jones is the guy. I think it's a problem when your owner is running to do the press conference before anybody else gets talked. He likes the limelight, and you know what? I would respect him even more.
Tears in his
he had
eyes.
a football acumen, but he's an oil guy that bought a football team and thinks he's a football guy. Now he's been in the league a ton of years, but
you know what? He's made the NFL so much money that he'll be revered by other owners as the greatest owner in the history of football.
He very well might be.
So much money.
But to the Cowboy fan, he's alienated a bunch of great coaches, ran Jimmy Johnson off. I don't know how you recover from that one. That team was so good they could win with Barry Switzer, but not for long. All right. Speaking of Barry Switzer, is this coach better or worse than Barry Switzer?
I don't even know. How about them Eagles? So here's my question, and this is the question that comes up, especially with what's transpired over the last 10 days. They leave a game, fizzle out, the bottom of the spiral, right? The dropping stone that never caught any kind of updraft at all over an 8-week period. Fire the DC, fire the OC, hire Vic Fangio, hire Kellen Moore, keep him. So, like, my question is, like, whose team is it really? Is it Howie Roseman's team? And he just wants a yes man in front of the camera. And like, who picked, like we talked about this a little bit last week of why he should have been fired for, if he was the one that promoted Matt Patricia to defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what his real role is. I don't see him as, he's not a good leader because he didn't save that mess. And now 2 coordinators get hired, and I don't even know. I guarantee you he had no say in the Vic Fangio hiring. There's no way. Yeah. They probably came to him and said, "Hey, did you see the paper today? We're hiring Vic Fangio." Because Vic Fangio and Howie Roseman are close.
Yep.
I mean, Fangio's been a consultant there. He's been in and out of that organization over time forever. I mean, the Kellen Moore hiring, the last time they hired an offensive coordinator from San Diego, he ended up being a great coach for the Colts. So I just don't know. I don't know what he actually does. Like what his real role is. And to me, it seems like, especially given this hiring cycle, though Dan Quinn broke it a little bit today with the Commanders, of this collaborative coaching regime that everybody wants, right? We're going to be, a GM, 2 coordinators, and a head coach that are going to all be on the same page all the time. And they're going to work in their own little realm for one direction, as opposed to, like, I'm running the defense, I'm running the offense, and I'm telling you guys how to do both of them.
Yep.
Like, they don't want input and picking players. They don't want any of that stuff. They just want coaches to coach. And you can see by the, it's great that there's young coaches coming into the NFL. I think it's great. It's shocking to me that we've completed this cycle with all jobs being filled. And I'm not as shocked that Belichick doesn't have a job as I am just astounded that Mike Vrabel does not have a job.
I said it last time we talked. If I was Woody Johnson, if I was down in New Orleans, I would call Dennis Allen today and say, "Hey, thanks for your contributions. You're out of here. I'm bringing Mike Vrabel." And to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me.
The only thing with Belichick that I could figure is that he must interview with owners and GMs like he interviews with the press.
That's very possible.
Word, just give me a resume and just sit there.
It's very possible. I heard Peter King yesterday, and Peter King, when they were asking him about Belichick, he said, well, you got to consider that he fractured a relationship with the Crafts. And then you look at that with two of the easiest people to get along with in the NFL. He fractured that relationship, performed poorly post Brady, and drafted poorly as well. And other teams are maybe looking at that and saying, do we want a guy that's going to be 73 years old, 73 years and 5 months old on opening day as our head coach with that immediate track record? We don't need that.
Look, I'm not a fan of coaches being general managers. I think there's enough to do running a team.
There's too much to do.
I don't like it. I don't think it works. I mean, look at the Raider hierarchy a year ago. Josh McDaniels was a coach. Dave Ziegler was a GM, but McDaniels was Ziegler's boss.
Yeah, it's too much work.
Backwards.
It's the players themselves require all of the attention at this point.
Yep.
Right. It's a different world that those guys have to live in. Like they've got to manage the mental, they've got to manage the social media. They got to manage all that stuff. They got to make sure that they're right all the time. And there's so many outside influences that can distract players. That's got to be their number one focus for the head coach.
Yep.
And picking the play and picking the players should be, hey, you got input. Hey, we're thinking about taking this tight end, but like, hey, geez, I really would feel better if we grab the defensive tackle here because that guy's available. Like having that input is one thing, but making the entirety of the decision, it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
All right. Here's another thing that's too much. Listen, Raider Nation fans, he's not coming. Okay.
It'd be the greatest day of my football life if he showed up.
Not coming to Vegas. I see people on Twitter all the time. Get Russell in for the veteran minimum. Who says no? I say no for a bunch of reasons. Number one, his best days were 10 years ago. That's number one. He's 35. He still thinks he's elite. He ain't signing anywhere for the veteran minimum.
No.
But he jumped the shark the day he decided he was going to be a celebrity quarterback. Right? Gets married to the entertainer. Good for you. I don't care about that stuff. But when it seems like that's getting in the way of, are you a gamer? Do you want to win? Do you want to win football games? Or do you want to be a celebrity? Do you want to have your own office away from the team locker room? He's not. Seattle couldn't wait to get rid of him, and look what Denver did. They cut bait on him before. They almost cut him in October.
I know.
Okay, as that story gets told. What does that tell you? A leader of men? No. Even a quarterback intent on winning a title? No, I don't buy it. I think he's in it for the money and the celebrity. He's been that way for 10 years since they won the Super Bowl.
No, when they were winning in Seattle, Bobby Wagner was the leader of men. That's the way it went.
Yeah. And you tell me, you have some ties to Pittsburgh. I read a story, I think on CBS Sports, saying Russell Wilson is the perfect personality for the Steelers. I'm like, what?
Well, so I say yes and no. And I say yes and no for a couple of reasons. The way he is right now, he's Ryan Tannehill 2.0.
Yep.
If they're going to hire Arthur Smith is the perfect offensive coordinator to get the absolute most out of what's left of Russell Wilson. All his other antics, they don't happen in Pittsburgh. They just don't.
Yep.
They just don't. And when they started to happen, what'd they do with guys? Le'Veon Bell. See ya. Antonio Brown. Okay, thank you. Like, you want to be a celebrity? Go be a celebrity, but you're not doing it here. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the way. This is the Steeler way. You don't like it, you're not here. It's fine. It's okay. Because guess what we're going to do? The same thing we've done for the last 60 years. We're going to find somebody to come in and do it equally as well.
Yep.
In our way. So like the two logical places for him are Atlanta and Pittsburgh. I don't think it'd be interesting for me to see, and you got another thing coming up on our list that will be an interesting comparison. Like what's the package that it's going to take? If they cut them, then it's totally different, right? They eat the $85 million, they suck it up, they're in a retool anyway. But to trade him, like what's the trade value for him? A fourth?
Zero.
You give him a fifth?
You got to trade him.
If it could become a third,
but you're trading him you're trading his contract.
Yeah, nobody's taking the contract.
Who wants that?
And he's already shown he's not going to restructure. And you know what? I wouldn't have either.
I wouldn't either. Hey, they gave it to him.
I would have, too bad, man. You signed me to it. If you're not going to play me, then that's on you. I don't care.
Oh, you're not getting any sympathy out of me for the Bronco organization. I hate them more than I hate the Chiefs.
I know that.
They deserve it. And when they traded for this buffoon, I called it the worst trade in the history of sports at that time. And yes, I am vindicated.
Yeah.
Just terrible. Hey, give me Dan Quinn going to the Commanders. I'm guessing that they didn't watch the Green Bay Dallas playoff game.
That one surprised me.
Vrabel's out there.
I more likely saw a flip-flop between Seattle and Washington with who got hired. And I kind of expected that Washington would hire a young, bright, energetic coach. And that's not to say that Dan Quinn's not energetic. And it's certainly not to say he's not bright. He's an unbelievable defensive coordinator. The only thing, and this is without seeing anything coming out of Washington yet, because this broke right before we started to get together.
Yep.
Is a lot of what they're doing is not only on the football side, but it's on the total culture side. And Dan Campbell has been around the game long enough and been in a strong culture in Seattle. That was a really Pete Carroll built a really good culture there.
Sure.
He fit in a world of chaos in Dallas and did the best possible job he could have done with the players that he had available to do it with, and brought the best out of guys that you never would have thought would have had that in them. Put them in the right scheme. So, he did a good job in Atlanta for the first 3 years, rescuing them, and then the last couple of years didn't go so well. So he's got head coaching experience. There's a lot of talent on that Washington team. They got a ton of picks. They have 4 or 5 picks in the top 100.
Yep.
They got $70 million in cap space to mess around with. They got the second pick of the draft. So, I think, if you're going to bring in a quarterback at the number 2 pick, and you're going to give them the keys to the car, because that's what they're going to do. They're not going to bridge with Sam Howell. That ship has clearly sailed for them, even though, another guy, you make him drop back 45 times a game, but you get what you get. If you're going to turn your franchise over to a 22-year-old kid, you better have somebody with league maturity and league experience and the right demeanor to be able to manage that. And that's all I can think of. Those are the reasons I can think of that they would hire Dan Quinn. I think it's a good hire. Yeah. I think it would have been a good hire no matter who hired him. I just found it odd that was the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. The other guys, I
would have hired Vrabel. I'm not telling you right now.
Yep.
There, he would have been perfect there.
Yeah.
But they get what they get.
Hey, the other chatter. I'm going back to the Raiders because that's what I do. The hot topic with the Bears, number 1 pick, Caleb Williams is the consensus number 1 pick. I don't know if I'd take him first, but okay. But he is. What do you do with Justin Fields? If I were me,
you trade him to the Raiders for a for a 2 and a 5.
2 and a 5. I would do that if I'm the Raiders for this reason. You're picking 13. You're not getting May, Williams, Jaden Daniels. Penix and Bo Nix, I like. I don't want J.J. McCarthy that high. I like those guys. But I'd almost roll with the possibility of getting Fields because you keep that number 1 pick. Fields at this time last year going into he was the man. They were on national TV schedule games because of Justin Fields. You can't tell me he regressed that much in 1 year.
He was dark horse for MVP candidate last year.
Yep.
Like people were betting more than a little bit of money on him because the odds were long and everybody thought he was going to have a great year, including me. Yeah. To be honest with you, I thought this past year would have been the year for him.
Yeah, I drafted him way too early in 2 fantasy leagues.
So if I'm the Bears, why would you trade him? Because he's shown enough. He's shown enough that, and he has a relationship with the head coach. He's going to have a new offensive coordinator, which would be his 3rd. Do you use the pick, flip-flop with who's picking at 3, acquire some more assets and draft capital, maybe get another edge rusher, I don't know, and then roll with Fields and get Marvin Harrison as a receiver or Malik Neighbors or one of those guys and get him another explosive playmaker on the outside? The reason you trade him is because you get to reset the clock on the salary.
Exactly. You reset that. And that's why I want the Raiders, if they can't get the top 3, go get Fields. You still have 2 years of control on him and you can use the money for other stuff.
Right. Well, if Mr. Purdue, if Aiden O'Connell's if he wasn't inconsistently inconsistent and they looked like they had something, like they're in Purdy world with their quarterback salary, and that lets you fix everything.
I like Aiden O'Connell. He's not, again, he's a starting caliber NFL quarterback, but he's never going to be in the top 20. It's just not who he is. He's immobile. His release isn't quick. He's smart. He's got a good arm, but it takes him too long.
He could be a 12 or 14 year NFL rostered player.
If he's your backup, I think he's one of the better backups in the league.
Yeah,
I'll give him that. I have a hunch Justin Fields ends up in Vegas, and I'm okay with that. Just don't give up a 1. He's not.
Yeah, there's not a lot of. There's really not a lot of landing spots.
No, there isn't.
There's really not. There's really not a lot of landing spots. I mean, my God, if the Jets traded for Justin Fields, it's bad enough every time I see Laramie Tunsil do something unbelievable that I throw up in my mouth because we took Zach Wilson instead of him. If they traded for Justin Fields and said, now we're going to have him sit behind Rodgers for a year, and we feel a lot better if something were to happen to Rodgers because we've got Fields, then Joe Douglas should be fired that day because he had the chance to make that pick.
Yep.
And I didn't want either of those guys, just to be clear. I didn't want either one of them.
Yep.
But it is what it is. I just don't see they could try to make a deal with Atlanta. That would be another spot where it would fit. And I think they got the right staff and weapons that it wouldn't be a heck of a lot different than what he was sitting in before. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a team that's more ready-made to compete and win, A, because of the division they play in, and B, because they've got a different running game than Chicago had. But they're in a uniquely difficult spot.
Yep.
No matter what decision they make, it's going to end up being the wrong one because let's just play it out. They trade him to the Raiders. He has a really good season, right? Top 10 quarterback season. And Caleb Williams struggles in year 1 because with the exception of CJ Stroud, they all do.
Pretty much.
Trevor Lawrence did. Trevor Lawrence was a better prospect than Caleb Williams to me. They lost. You should have never traded Fields. We should have used the pick on other things. They keep him. Fields has another middling year, gets hurt a couple times. Why didn't you trade the pick? They can't win.
Yep.
It's so Bears. It's terrifying.
All right, hey, let's move on. Carolina, David Tepper. They hired a guy I never heard of. Didn't see that one coming. Look, it's not his fault. Bryce Young was an awful trade. I didn't like Young coming out of Alabama as a number one pick. I thought he looks like a Pop Warner kid playing out there in game of men. He's a small guy.
Yes.
He's got skills. He's just small, but David Tepper's just going through coaches like nothing, and they're a long way away from being competitive.
Yeah, and then you hire a kid, right? A young guy, a bright up and coming. Look what he did with Baker Mayfield. Look what he did with him. I mean, come on, like it's him. Like he's another quarterback whisperer guy. If they're 1-8, is he around for week 10?
No.
So
got it. Not with this guy's track record.
That's my concern with that hire.
Yep.
Sometimes you take a job that you're ready for, you take it in the wrong spot. I think he took it in the wrong spot.
How about you wanted to talk about Mike McDaniel, the wonderkind in South Florida?
Where's Waldo? That dude should be wearing a red striped shirt and a stocking cap all the time because he looks just like where's Waldo. So now in reflection of the season and the unhinging of the Dolphins, all I heard all year is how much of a genius he is as a coach. Could it be possibly, and now Vic Fangio's gone, could it be possibly that maybe Tua's a little bit better than he's being given credit for, with those, especially with those weapons? And a healthy Tua is why McDaniel looks like a good coach, and that he's really not that good of a coach at all.
Yep. I don't know. They're a funny team. They looked great at times when they weren't playing good teams. It's hard to read on them. You got to see what happens next year. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, look, they didn't beat anybody that they were, quote unquote, even with. They had no success against teams with winning teams. I mean, the Ravens blowing them out to me was like, oh boy, here you go. Like, you really need this game, and the Ravens kind of don't, and you just got boat raced and outcoached dramatically.
Yes.
I don't know.
All right. We'll see on that. All right, let's go to the R World segment. You can lead off this week.
Yeah.
NBA, New York Knicks.
Hey, the Garden is rocking and rolling, right? 8-game winning streak, best record in the NBA in the last 15 games. They trade for OG Anunoby. I didn't like that trade just simply because I like Quickly and RJ Barrett, so it wasn't a basketball thing. Obviously, it was a really good trade. So now, Leon Rose, you have a chance. You're third in the East. The Bucks are in disarray. For whatever reason, we played the Celtics incredibly close for the last 3 years. I don't know why. Celtics are a better team. You have a chance. You've got 8 tradable first-round picks, a valuable expiring contract, and a guy that's been on the milk carton for the last 2 years because nobody knows where he is, and Evan Fournier. You've got Quentin Grimes, who everybody seems to want. You've already demonstrated that you'll trade young players. And you've got guys on expiring and you want to sign a megastar. And you've got guys on expiring contracts that other teams would like to trade and get some assets back, like Valanciunas in New Orleans, and you could use some help in the middle. DeMar DeRozan would be a good fit. You're not getting Mikal Bridges. The Nets aren't going to trade with you. I saw something that like 5 first-round picks, Fournier and Grimes, would be a good trade. The Nets haven't traded with the Knicks since, I don't know, it was like 74 and Lenny Elmore. It's been forever. That's not going to happen, and we don't need any more Villanova guys. Come on. Unless you're going to hire Jay Wright. Stop it with the Villanova guys. Stop it. Yeah. I mean, Jesus. I mean, winning a national title and winning an NBA championship aren't the same thing. But you make whatever deal has to be made by the trade deadline to put this team into position to make a deep run. The NBA is better when the Garden is rocking in the playoffs. And my health is better by a lot when the Garden is rocking in the playoffs.
All right. Well, very good. Now for me, listen, Major League Baseball, do me a favor. Watch what happened in Baltimore and now apply it to Oakland. Stop me if you've heard this before. Sell the effing team. Sell it. The Angelos fan, I'll tell you what, you know who's happy this week? Fans down in the Beltway of the Orioles and the Redskins. They are divesting themselves of Daniel Snyder and the Angelos family potentially in one calendar year. That's what we call a win. Now, the interesting part about this Oriole deal is the valuation is approximately $1.7 billion. Good for them. That idiot John Fisher is trying to get funding and or minority owners for the A's trip to Vegas on a $2 billion valuation for a team that he has stripped of all of its parts in the last 4 years. His payroll is like $56 million this year. The A's actually telling people, yeah, we go to Vegas. We're going to, after 3 years of being vagabonds and 7,000 stadiums, 7,000 capacity stadiums, AAA, that our payroll is going to be $170 million when we get to Vegas. How stupid do you think people are, other than Rob Manfred and those Nevada legislators? John Fisher's trying to get funding and everything for the stadium, which he's on the hook for $1.1 or $1.2 billion on a $2 billion valuation when it's half that. Right now, they're not going to Vegas. I got into an argument with a big man in Massachusetts about this the other day. He keeps saying, oh, follow the money. Salt Lake City is more likely than Las Vegas. That deal is not going to happen. There's too many holes in it. They don't have room. They're not going to put a stadium where the Trop is. It doesn't fit. And I've said they can't build up. They got McCarran Airport right there. Ain't going to happen. Keep them in Oakland. I maintain that. The A's are staying in Oakland.
He'd get kicked off Shark Tank with that valuation.
I'm sure Mr. Wonderful would have an awful lot to say about that. Yeah, $2 billion. He has absolutely destroyed that franchise. He's destroyed the valuation.
You Mark Cuban. What are your assets?
Yeah.
What? How'd you get that valuation?
Dwindling stock that mommy and daddy gave him. That's his that's where it comes from.
Yep.
All right. Well, on that note, next week, Super Bowl 58. We'll call it the extravaganza. That's what it's going to be. A wonderful week, and we will get you all soon.
Peace. Smash the like button.
Yeah. Subscribe. Do it.